Welcome back. We hope you had a great time celebrating Easter with your family last week. Now it's time to get back to business. To wrap up this special episode with guest number 1, Ryan Peterson, the guys cover a lot of ground very quickly, so get your running shoes on and try to keep up. The discussion starts off serious with topics like the positive and negative impacts of club sports and the gender mixing in the male and female sports. Ryan has a bone to pick with the powers that be in the high school basketball world about why the high school boys always get the primetime slots over the girls' teams. What kind of message is that sending to our high school girls? What would Caitlin Clark say about that? Then the fellas have a lot of fun reminiscing about Iron Mike Tyson. And then they take down hard Madonna and Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. We don't pull any punches here on the What Is Up podcast. In this corner, your host, Bubba Seaman.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. This is a conclusion to a special bonus episode that we were doing to mark the 15th episode of the What Is Up podcast. I asked a good buddy of mine, Ryan Peterson, the guest from episode 1 that we did last August, somewhere on there, to launch this thing. I asked him to come back on so we could just go a little bit deeper on some topics. I asked him to go a little bit deeper on his response to the question, what's the number one thing we got going for us in the country, and what's the worst thing happening in the country? And he said greed was the worst thing and technology was the best thing. So we went in depth on those two things. It was quite the economics lesson. Go back and check that out. That was really good stuff. No matter what you believe politically, economically, we went way deeper into that issue than just surface level greed. We talked how biblically, obviously, we know it's bad, but Ryan made some really good points about how come wages haven't kept up. Something I've thought about a lot. So if you're interested, go back and check that out before you listen to this one. But, I guess if you're here now, we got you. So just keep listening. So we're going to finish up with some of these things. We had some other topics that I wanted to discuss with him and that he agreed to discuss, and some stuff he wanted to discuss and surprise me. So we're going to run through these. These are going to be, hopefully, some of them are a little bit lighter. One of them's a little more serious, but we're going to get into that stuff. So let's start, Ryan, with the benefits of youth sports, because this is a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Okay, just by you saying yes, I'm going to let you run with it then, because
right. So
there's good and bad.
We'll start with the detriments of it. So when I was a kid, and I'm sure there was no club sports. There was not this travel ball, this stuff, and I'm not 100%. I'm not going to say I'm against it. I'm against it when it interferes with the rest of life. I have people that I know whose kids play club sports, and they chase them around the country, and they spend astronomical amounts of money.
Thousands.
And some of them don't have this money to spend, but they're chasing this dream, and they concentrate on one sport. Now, I was a multi-sport athlete, and that athlete is real loosely. I've never been athletically inclined. I love sport, and I try extremely hard to be good at it. I think that playing multiple sports makes you a better all-around athlete than sticking with one.
Yes.
So when you do these club sports, when club sports interfere with your family life, that's, in my opinion, when it becomes a problem. And you see that,
it's every weekend.
How can you be taking your children to church if every Saturday and Sunday, 36 weeks a year, you're playing baseball or basketball or wherever else? Yeah. So that it takes a place of, it becomes your God.
It becomes your God. There you go.
And I think we know where that leads to in this world.
Yeah.
So sports in that realm can be a unbelievable detriment. Now, if you look at it from the way that I think it's appropriate, they can be one of the most beneficial things. I know they were for me. They still are for me, especially for my mental health. For me, for my mental health, I have to. I know Nesbitt touched on it too. When I'm not exercising, I went through a stage of depression in my 30s when I was overweight. I was drinking too much. And I had to make some changes, and I started reading my Bible, and I started working out.
Yeah.
And any time that I was having a bad day, instead of having a beer, I'd go for a run,
Yeah.
go lift weights, and the endorphins that it would kick in, and the change that you see in yourself, they motivate you to be a better version of yourself. I think when I'm fit and ready in life, physically, I'm fit and mentally. It helps with everything. My focus, my drive. It just helps everything. So when you look at children, it helps with discipline. Okay, it helps build their morale. It helps with teamwork. You know how big teamwork is in society today. Everybody's always working in teams. Okay, it helps in problem solving. It helps with sportsmanship. You know, you don't have to, in sports. There's too much emphasis put on winning. Now, I know you think, oh, Ryan, no, I'm not for participation medals. I am for this. Everybody has a God-given ability in a sport, okay? You can only take it so far.
Yeah.
So let's say that we'll just use my youngest, for example. He is trained incredibly hard. I've never seen more dedication and effort and focus in the last year than I had in the last year with him, right? He's never going to win the Olympics in running, okay? So he's striving to be the best runner that he can be. Mm-hmm. Once you walk off, if it's basketball, football, baseball, wrestling, I don't care, boxing, whatever it is, when you exit the arena and you say you've done the best you could do, you should be extremely proud of yourself. So that's and that level, especially, and I think so. Here's where we'll get into the other subject a little bit, but it can really build up self-esteem in children and keeps them away from an idle hands or devil's playground. We already know that.
Yep.
Henry yesterday got up at 6 a.m. and went for a run. Okay, he went 6 or 7 miles. Then he went to the cabin and threw rock all day long for me.
How old is Henry?
Henry's 17 years old.
Nice.
Then we got home from the cabin about 8:30. He's strapping on his shoes. I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm headed to the Jessup track to do a track workout." Okay, there's much worse things kids could be doing than participating in sports. So it keeps him motivated, and hopefully keeps him out of some of the troubles that he could be getting into, that you see a lot of these youth getting into. Now, this is where I think that youth sports are even more important for girls. I think it's, and it's not that it's more important. I just think it's more emphasis is put on boys sports, which we'll talk about here in a couple minutes, which I think is very invalid. Okay, and I'll discuss exactly what I mean by that. But girls' self-worth is extremely important. And when they can participate in sports and get physically fit and active and learn all the good things that can come from it, it raises their self-worth. And when their self-worth is raised, they don't do things that lower their self-worth, okay? I think it's very vital for all children to participate in sports, and they all should feel as important as the other ones. I forced my daughter to participate in at least one sport every year in high school.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because I've seen the extreme benefits of boys and girls doing sports. So I don't want to hijack you here, but I'll discuss this thing here. So when you talk about boys and girls sports, okay, we're just gonna roll right into this.
Okay.
I won't let you prelude. I'll roll into it.
Okay. So
there is a distinct difference between boys and girls biologically. There's a distinct difference. I know that some people out there think there's not now. Okay?
Oh my goodness.
So you know what I'm saying. I don't want to go deep down that. I think that's a whole rabbit hole that I don't know enough about to even to get involved in. I really don't. But if you stop lying to yourself, you know there's a distinct
biological differences.
You can lie. Henry right now could be an Olympic qualifier in the 800. Okay. As a female.
And the women's. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
The women's national champion last year could not beat Henry. She put out a 2:01 and some change. He could beat her in a foot race, okay?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a distinct difference between boys and girls. So, therefore, there needs to be distinct differences in their sports. They should never be competing against each other.
Okay.
And that goes both ways. This is where I'm going to surprise you. So,
okay.
Should boys be allowed to participate in girls' sports? Absolutely not. 100% no. Should girls be able to participate in boys' sports? 200% absolutely not. So what I'm getting to is, so one of the greatest things I've seen happen in the last few years, they started girls wrestling. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It should have been going on for years. Twice growing up when I was wrestling, girls came out to wrestle me, and my father didn't allow it, and I didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't want to wrestle. It wasn't nothing personal.
Right.
I shouldn't be rolling around in those positions with a female. So we didn't do it. We walked away. We said, nope, you win. We walked away, okay? So, and I've seen this happen. So there was 2 states, and I can't remember them offhand. I had it on my other sheet of paper, where there was girls wrestling, and these girls were 3- and 4-time women's girls champions. And then the 2 girls both wrestled in the boys state championships too. And both of them won titles. And they glorified this, and you can look it up. Man, I wish I remember. One was a 132 pounder, one was like a 126 pounder. But they were not in Iowa, they were in different states.
Okay.
So there was girls wrestling there, because the excuse before was, well, there's no girls wrestling, so they allowed them to wrestle the boys. I don't buy into that. It's not fair. And it's not fair on a number of which we'll get to in a second. So, but these girls were allowed to go win their girls wrestling championships, okay? Then they were allowed to wrestle in the boys. And they beat boys.
Okay.
Why was that allowed? That is completely ridiculous. Here's why. They were, would they have allowed these boys in the 160 to 170 pound range, these boys that are full of testosterone, to go over and wrestle in the girls one?
No.
Would it have been appropriate?
No.
No level.
No, it's not right.
So then you say, well, the girls were at a disadvantage. Well, in them really lower weight classes, they're really not. Because these girls mature faster. They're strong. They're great wrestlers. Okay, so now you've got a girl who's already won a state championship. So one thing she's done is she's taken this opportunity away from this boy.
Yeah.
And then second thing she's done is she's saying, well, why is there even girls wrestling if the girls are wrestling with the boys anyway? So that it cloudies the water up. The third thing is, can you imagine being this young man? Now, I'm being dead serious. You're a young man. You're a great wrestler. Now you just got beat by a female for the state championship. That's going to be with you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So why is that necessary? That is not right. Girls' sports should have the same merit as boys' sports, but they need to be separate.
Sure.
So that really bothered me. That was my curveball I'm throwing in there. So here's the other curveball. So I had not watched a high school sport since until George got in, since I was in high school. It was a 25-year gap, okay?
Yeah.
And so we go up to the boys' game, and the boys' game was starting at 7 p.m. Okay, they always played the girls at 6, the boys at 7.
Yep.
And I watched 2 or 3 weeks, my George junior year. I go, well, when are the girls getting the prime time spot? I asked the guys at the school, and they're like, well, we had the boys' game at 7 because we want to make sure all the parents are off work and get to the game, because that's the prime time game. Why is that the prime time game, Bubba?
Oh, the girls have always played before the boys, just always.
Why?
I guess they deem it less.
Oh.
Maybe makes less money, less revenue. That
What
doesn't sound right.
What you're telling your daughters is they aren't as important as boys. That's nonsense. If I was in charge of the schools, they would switch. Every other week, it would be the girls get the prime time.
Okay.
Because the girls' sport is just as vital and just as important as the boys' sports. So why do the boys... You're setting up, in fact, too, that the boys are more important than the girls.
Getting back to their mental...
Correct.
Yeah.
These girls should know that they are just as viable of an athlete and just as important as the boys. There's no reason the boys always get prime time, even in track and field. Guess who always gets the primetime spots? The last event of the night is a 4x4. You know who runs the main event of the 4x4? The boys.
Yeah.
Why can't the girls have the main event every other week? Why is it always the boys? Oh, because they're bigger, faster, stronger. They're biologically bigger, faster, stronger. That doesn't mean they're better in relationship. So if you look at females basketball, so I've been hounding Mary about this and everybody about this since 2016 when I first saw it, but now you're starting to see it come full circle with Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
Me and Mary. So now when you think about men's basketball in Iowa versus women's basketball, which one is a more inspiring product to watch?
I specifically tuned into the women's tournament last year because I was tired of hearing about this Caitlin Clark. I was like, I got to see what it's about. I don't like women's basketball. I haven't stopped watching since. It is competitive basketball. It's fun to watch.
Correct. And now they're starting to get some of the main event times,
Yeah.
which they should have always had. I love watching the Iowa women's basketball team play.
Yeah, it's fun.
I watch men's basketball too, but so that's my thing with sports.
Oh, you just proved a good point right there.
They are, and I don't even care if they're doing it purposefully. They're telling you, and they're telling our daughters that your sport is not as important as the boys. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They should have equal main event time. So that's my thing.
So I'm sitting here trying to think. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Just think back. Is it always that way? Do the girls maybe play on Thursday nights or something like? And no, the answer is no. It's always they both play on, because you put kids on a bus and you send both boys and girls team. There's one
Correct.
away team.
Yep.
So your proposal would absolutely work. They both go on Friday
Correct.
night. 1 week the boys play 6 p.m. The girls play the prime time 7 p.m.
Correct.
And then the next, the ADs can figure this out.
Right.
It's a
because
solvable problem.
What if you were a dad and you had to work till 6 every night and you had a daughter on the team? So
You
now
don't- you gotta take off work to go see
the
her,
school has
or-
told you that your daughter's not important enough for you to see her play. Nonsense.
Wow, I've never heard of that. I've never
So-
heard anybody bring that up. Or
So that's been bugging me since 2016, and I just don't understand it because I know how critical and vital being involved in athletics are for both males and females.
did you ever reach out to the AD in Dunkerton and ask? Because I'm going to email.
I talked
I'm
to
gonna email Bird right now.
I talked to one of the coaches years ago, and the reason they told me is that
Revenue.
well, the males, the boys' main event game, they want to make sure that everybody can be off work in there in time.
But that's not that's not
right,
the answer.
So there we're putting revenue over our children again. We go back to what's that? Go back to our topic from last week. It shouldn't matter.
Shouldn't matter.
All children are as valuable as the next in all sports.
Yeah,
are
we're
valuable.
not talking at the professional level here. We're talking. Yeah, I get it.
In professional sports, revenue matters. This is about raising
That's
kids.
a product. At that point, it's a product.
This is about raising kids with character
Yeah.
and letting them know that they're as valuable as the next. So therefore, there should be equal varsity main event time for both sexes.
Did Elizabeth ever say anything like that bothered her or anything like
No,
that?
she never did. It bothered me.
You recognized
It bothered me because I missed one of her games because I had to work late, and that's when it really started sticking to me. I'm like, why do the boys never play second?
Yeah, I'm going
First
to
inning?
ask some questions and see.
So yep. So and it's in all sports still that I know of. I know it's in track. I know it's in basketball. So the girls always go first, and then the main event boys come out. Well,
Yeah.
we don't need to always be the main event.
Yeah, I got you.
So I know that was a little swerve I was going to throw in there for you. I know it'd be a
Nice.
different-
Yeah,
different-
you
a different
scared me when you
a
say
different
I'm gonna
perspective.
when we start talking boys and girls sports, men and women's sport, I'm gonna throw you a curveball, and I was like, oh my goodness, don't do this. I don't want to have to bury you on here.
No.
That was
so,
good.
So yeah, so that's what I think. So yeah, but so sports are very vital. And fitness is very vital, but not for your mental aspect, but for your emotional,
Yeah.
for everything. So yeah, so I love kids participating in sports. I think it's great.
Yeah. So what do you think the whole travel thing? I can't remember what the last stats were, but it's like less than 1% chance your kid is going to make it to the Division I level in any sport. Not saying you shouldn't try.
Extremely hard.
It's less than 1%.
Correct.
So, and it's even less than that to make it professional.
Oh, it's
Beyond that.
unbelievable.
So you take that, and I'm not saying like I'm thinking of my niece Willow, Lance and Danielle's daughter.
Sure.
You know Lance, huge giant guy. Danielle, collegiate softball player, lacrosse player. Obviously, their kid is super talented and
athlete,
gifted,
yes.
and they do all the travel ball and all this stuff, and I'm not knocking them at all. Lance, gosh, I'm not knocking you. What I'm saying is, like, you look at the statistics of, like we said, you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're good at it. They're using their gifts in hopes of a scholarship, in hopes of, so at that point, maybe if they get the scholarship, the money's a wash then. All that money it was an investment. Maybe they are that 1% that gets a Division I scholarship. They have a good college career, and that's it. Okay, so it's a wash. But what about the kids who, get burned out before they even get to that point?
But is the time a wash?
Oh, the time's not a wash. I will say that as I watch travel basketball teams and travel, softball teams and stuff like that, I do see. I mean, the families are together. I will give them that, but. Yeah, it is kind of like you're saying. That is the dominant driving factor of the entire family. Then at that point,
Correct.
You're putting it number one, and that's
if,
careful.
If you can manage it, I'm not saying I'm against it. I just
Right.
think
Yeah, me neither.
You got to be very careful when you start chasing those kind of dreams.
Yeah, that's tough.
Because if your kid's got a ton of talent, he's going to rise.
Right. So here's what I've seen, because I'm trying to think of all the different sports, all the different things I've seen. The wrestling clubs run year round.
Oh, yeah.
And wrestlers are a different breed. I get that. I mean, even thinking back to when Henry and JJ were little and we had the one big tournament that they were both in, and that was kind of my first time seeing a little kids AAU tournament.
Right.
And I seen little kids slapping themselves in the face and all, and I'm like, this is not like
No.
put me on a football field, I'm aggressive, I like it. I felt out of my zone. I was like, these kids are nuts. This is psycho. This is crazy. This is intense. And they do this year round and all that. And then you kind of, sometimes you see some of them fizzle out by the time they get to high school when when it's time to start hitting the podium, and they might fizzle out. It's like they got burnt out. They lost the love for it. And not all of them do. Some of them go full gun all the way through. And that's great. But sometimes they get burnt out. It's like they don't even enjoy it anymore by the time they hit junior, senior year. And it's like, oh, man. And so that's why we said it's a double-edged sword. We got to make sure that we're also not being that dad who's just trying to live through it. If they want to do it, they do it. But I understand JJ, unless he works his butt off, he's not going to play college football. Right. But I want to make sure he knows it is a reality. If you put the time in, there's absolutely no reason you can't go to an Upper Iowa or something like that and play college football. You got to say no to a lot of things, and you got to say yes to all the hard work.
Right.
It's all on your shoulders. But it's definitely... Sports is not going to take the podium of God in my household. It will not. No one's gifted enough here. So, yeah, you got to be careful with that. But, okay. Well, yeah, I think we can leave that one there. That's pretty good. Okay. We made it clear... I think you're one of the best boxers that never went professional ever. I've tasted enough. I didn't tell you this, but so I'm moving up into the engineering office for half days.
Nice.
Until they can get somebody to run my machine. We can't get a good operator to run a CNC multicam operator. No, we can't. So I'm doing half days, and of course I'm spreading the podcast. I mean, just annoying, the new guy just trying to just pump this thing up. So I come back on a Monday, and one of the engineers goes, "Hey, listen to the podcast. I didn't know you were an amateur boxer." And I laughed. I was like, I am not. I was like, my buddy was, you're confused, sir. Let me tell you a few stories to remind you how not amateur. Amateur is such a reach, but thank you for the compliment. And so he was listening to that and stuff, and I was just like, okay. So yes, Ryan is the former Golden Gloves boxer, tough white kid from Waterloo, and attitude to go with it. And yeah, that's kind of, I mean, that was the start of you getting back into shape, me getting back into shape, and then it kind of led into the whole running thing. And you can go back to episode 1 and listen to all that. Lots of fun stories in there. I went home from his house every Friday night with a bloody nose. That's just the way it went. But I dropped 50 pounds. And those were
we had a good time.
We did. We really did. And those are fun.
We never
stories.
left mad.
No, not at all.
We always had a good time. I always had a good time.
But you did. You enjoyed knowing... You said you'd see the look on my face coming in there on a Friday night.
Twinkle in your eyes.
Oh, he's ready. He's going to land a shot. He's going to do something. And by the end of the night, I'm like, just ring the stinking bell. I'm done. We're out of here. And poor Mary, she comes to my defense one night because you hit me with one body shot because I was just trying to go too hard. And you folded me over with one good, I don't know, what was it, 75% maybe? Yeah. And it just doubled me over. Like, I don't want any more of this. That was tough. But so yeah, let's talk boxing for a minute, because the reason you and me got into watching UFC and MMA, I mean, it was just flat out exciting.
Yes.
That was after, I mean, they had just cleaned it up. They made it sanctioned, rules.
And boxing was very boring at the time.
Boxing was just going downhill. Yeah. I wouldn't want to watch it.
No.
I mean, there was only a couple of guys that were still hanging on, and they were past their prime. It was really their name, like Roy Jones Jr. and stuff, just hanging on too long. Yeah. But, and to your credit, you called it. You were like, you said something about, juicing and steroids and all this. And you're like, dude, all these guys are doing it. I was like, there's no way. This is the cleanest sport there is. They test for this stuff. And it's like, geez, yeah, now looking back, everybody in every sport, if they're not doing it, they're not competitive.
Correct.
We got to figure out how either allow it across the board or like you were saying, just let them do it. Let's just have freak leagues if they're going to do it. Okay. But anyway, so boxing had just just tailed off, man. It was not exciting. There's no big main event. You don't think the heavyweight boxing champ from 2000 on, you don't think he's the baddest man on the planet. You know the mixed martial artists are the baddest dudes on the planet. And so we were big into that. But this Jake Paul from YouTube, I guess he was a YouTube star. Somehow, I don't even think he was like involved in athletics on YouTube. I think he was just a YouTuber, right, JJ? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't even know what he did. It was nothing sports.
He was a high school wrestler, though, wasn't he?
James, was he a wrestler? You don't know?
I believe him and his brother are high school wrestlers.
Okay.
Pretty darn good
Okay,
ones.
so he had a platform to start from.
Yeah, they're always fit. That's the only thing I do know about him is that George told me they were high school wrestlers.
Okay. So I guess Mayweather probably started this thing, doing these cherry-picked events just for the purse, just for the draw. Mm-hmm. But this Jake Paul is setting up these like mega matches that are... I mean, he has talent, I guess. I want to know what you think. How has he has changed it to where we don't buy a pay-per-view for a boxing event, watching all the undercards. People tune in just to watch this one match between him and a former NFL running back, or the big one coming up, Mike Tyson, who the guy has not aged, I swear. But give me your opinions on all of this.
Okay, well, we talked off the podcast about my love for WWE wrestling.
Yes.
I'm a big-time wrestling junkie. I've been since I was a little kid. Jake Paul and his brother, when it comes to selling themselves, are geniuses.
Good marketers.
They're unbelievable. It's all sleight of hand. This is carnival stuff. You know what I mean? This is WWE 2.0.
Okay.
It's a joke. So from what I'm hearing going into this, let's pretend that we put 10-ounce fight gloves on. That's what heavyweight should wear. 10-ounce fight gloves, okay? They put 10-ounce fight gloves on there, and you cut them loose. Tyson puts him in the hospital.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care. He's 60 years old, 30 years, doesn't matter. Tyson's going to... Now, Jake Paul has developed himself into one tough kid. I take nothing away from this kid. YouTuber,
what about skill-wise, though?
YouTuber not, he's tough.
Okay.
He's a sloppy hooker. He doesn't defend himself well. He leads with his chin.
Okay.
But as far as, could he go pro and beat a lot of unranked pro fighters in the, super middleweight, that 180, which is really what he should be, super middleweight. He's going to cut down to 168, 170. Absolutely. He could beat a lot of guys down there. And he'd be competitive till he got into the upper echelons.
Top ranks.
But now, mind you, he's only been doing this for a couple of years, so he's an extremely athletic kid. But to pretend that he could go in there and compete versus one of the best heavyweights of all time, I don't care what his age are. No. So what I've been hearing is that they're going to wear 18-ounce gloves. 18s. So we used to spar in 16-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
And those things feel like big pillows.
They were big.
Yeah, you have to really, really throw a punch to hurt somebody with a 16-ounce glove. I mean, you could hit me with a 16-ounce glove in the head until you're blue in the face. You aren't going to hurt my head. I mean, well, in this juncture you might, but in normal circumstances you wouldn't. You know what I'm saying, Bubba. Yeah. So they're going to wear 18-ounce gloves, and I hear rumors that they're going to wear headgear.
No.
That's what I'm hearing. So then here's the best part about it. I believe this is to be true. I'd almost assure you that Tyson has a knockout clause in there. When he went with Roy Jones, remember that?
When Tyson went with Jones?
Remember when they had that little Mickey Mouse card there a few years back, him and Roy Jones fought? You didn't see that?
I think so.
It was like NBC. So there was a clause in there, if Mike Tyson knocked him out, he wouldn't get paid. Okay, so he had to carry him for 8 rounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, Roy Jones has aged extremely poorly. So have you seen him? If you haven't,
I haven't seen him lately.
You need to check the fight out. So in the first round, Tyson comes out and he looks fantastic, and he's bobbing and weaving, and he cracks him, and you see him catch him and hold him up because Tyson's competitive juices got flowing, and he cracked him. Okay, so then you see for the next whatever it was, 6 rounds or whatever it was, Tyson carried him. He flicks little punches at him. So all Tyson's going to do is go out there, because Tyson needs money, because Tyson can't obviously manage his money for some reason. I mean, you give either one of me or you one of his paydays, and we disappear for life.
Yeah.
Our wives, that discussion about work, that's a foregone conclusion. You know what I'm saying, Bubba?
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about a 2 or a 1 income. We're done.
I think he's making money now. I think he's selling pot. He's got a pot farm or whatever. He's raising all kinds of cannabis and stuff.
Yeah, and he's made money from these other fights he's done. But for some reason, he seems to find a way to be. I don't know what he does.
Nothing changed from his younger days. He blew it all. Yeah, I got you.
So what I'm gathering is that there's a no knockout clause. Now, he might prove me wrong, but I heard they were an 18-ounce glove, possibly headgear. It's going to be a dog and pony show. This is a fake fight. This is not a real deal. This is going to be WWE 2. Is it going to sell? Am I probably going to watch it? I love Mike Tyson. I just can't help
do too,
it.
yeah.
He, in my youth, I mean, you had Roberto Duran, you had James Lights Out Tony, and Iron Mike Tyson. Those are my guys. And so if you get those guys, I'm watching it.
But so now the more I learned about boxing and the more I listened to people, they would say, yeah, there was no one like Mike Tyson. He had people beat before he even got in the ring, whatever. But they said it eventually came out that he was not, like, when you start saying best heavyweights of all time, you'd put a few guys in front of most people will put a few guys in front of Mike Tyson because they'll say Tyson wasn't the best boxer. No. If he couldn't drop you in that first round, maybe second round, and you took him a little bit, not even to deep water, his lack of boxing skills, his athleticism, whatever.
Mentally, I think it was more.
Or mentally too, yeah. They'd say Ali was a much better boxer, full, well-rounded. Everyone say they would outbox Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a slugger and this and that, and I was like, I think he was a little more than that, but
he was a phenom for his speed and power ratio for what he weighed. An extremely undersized heavyweight compared to the heavyweight of now, modern era, 5'10", 5'11", 210 pounds. That's not a heavyweight now.
No.
They're making him a middleweight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't really, I don't like greatest of all time conversations.
From era to era?
Generational, so because too much stuff changes. We're evolving in speed, nutrition, training. But there is greats that change sports. Michael Jordan changed the sport of basketball. He's the greatest to ever do it because he changed the sport. People mimicked him. Muhammad Ali changed boxing. The way he slipped and slid and moved, he changed the sport. Do I think that Muhammad Ali, you could put him in there with anybody in the world from any era and he would win? No, I don't. I don't think he's. But do I think he's? If you had to say who was the greatest, who had the greatest impact on the sport, I'd have to say, yeah, he did. But do I think he could beat heavyweights of today? No. Do I think he could have beat one of the fit Klitschko boys in the day? Absolutely not. They were giants, 6'7", hit like Mack trucks.
They would hurt him.
Do I think that Mike Tyson could beat a fit and ready Tyson Fury? Absolutely not. There's too much in the toolbox. There's too much has changed. But is Tyson Fury going to go on an all-time list above Muhammad Ali? No, absolutely not. But is there? So I think that a fit and ready Larry Holmes in his prime, extremely underrated, in my opinion. Now why he's not greater than Ali, even though he beat him, is because he mimicked Ali. He threw the jab. He slipped. He was Muhammad Ali-ish. You know what I'm saying? But George Foreman, unbelievable fighter. Frazier. There's just so many guys that were so good. Mike Tyson, in my mind, Mike Tyson is the top 10 of all time.
Yeah,
period.
Sure.
He has to be.
Yeah, I agree.
But there is generations, there's eras. Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, George Foreman, Mike Tyson. These are the guys I would say are up there. But this YouTube kid, he's undersized. He's half his age. He can't beat Mike Tyson. Let's get real. If that was a real shoot.
If it's a real thing, you'd say there's no way.
There's absolutely. And I'm not taking nothing away. He's a tough kid.
No, I got it.
He's not beating him. There's levels to this stuff.
So do you think Paul gets 100% go card against him?
Absolutely.
Because he's the one. He's the one who's bringing the money in.
He's going to go wide open on him. And guess what he's going to do to Mike Tyson? Nothing. Tyson's going to be bobbing and weaving, slipping. He's a professional.
Yeah.
He's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
He's going to slip and slide and take a few shots. He'll make it look good for the crowd.
Oh, that's like the Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather thing.
Same thing.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we went over to Eric's and watched that, and it was
If Mayweather wanted to get him out of there in 3, he would have got him out of there in 3.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I guess that's where this line of questioning came from. I was like, are we in for a real event, or are we in for a scripted spectacle.
We're going to be in for an entertaining night, I believe.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because they'll get us, yeah.
And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, entertainment.
Yep.
So I don't really care that it's not going to be a real fight. I don't think Mike Tyson should be doing. He's too old.
What is he now? Do we even
I think he's
know?
going to be 60 this year.
Oh, my God.
He's up there.
He doesn't look like 60.
No, and he's in incredible shape for his age. But Father Time's undefeated.
Yep.
You can't beat it. And I would hate to see him, because here's the thing. You get any grown men that are big and heavy-handed in there, anything can happen.
Yeah.
So let's say that Paul actually clips him. I mean, it could happen. It could. He's old. You don't take shots. Your collagen, all this stuff in your joints and bodies. I can't take the shot I could take when I was 20. Nowhere
No
near
one
it.
could. Yeah.
Nowhere near it. That's why I had to drill you in the rib cage, and you were throwing heavy shots in my head. I'm like, one of these might connect. It's gonna hurt. I need to get him back on the straight. I need to get him on the straight and narrow. This 10%'s done for a little bit here until we calm him down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So it will be entertaining. Sure, it's gonna be entertaining.
I think it's on Netflix.
on
I think if
Netflix.
you have Netflix,
Yeah,
you don't
that's
have to
what I'm
pay for
hearing.
it. I think you
So-
just have it. So.
I'll absolutely be watching it.
Okay. I'm coming over. 'Cause I don't
you
think we
can.
have it anymore.
Well, you should bring Timothy over. You guys can watch the Iron Claw because I paid for it, so it's on my Amazon account, so you can watch that first. Though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm with you on the whole athlete thing. We saw that happening in MMA. If you remember that show, The Ultimate Fighter, those first few seasons, they were just tough man
Tough kids.
bar
Yep.
fighters, basically. That did those competitions.
Lieben and those guys.
Yeah, and you watched it evolve so fast. You realize these guys,
Super athletes.
after the next generation that come up after them, who grew up in MMA, unbelievable. Because now they're putting together nutrition, and they do this stuff all the time. They're not just kids that fought for $100 at Lofty's in Evansdale or something.
Rich Franklin.
Yeah. So the reason you didn't, it's the same thing. And all those boxers you just mentioned, you did not dip back to Marciano, Joe Louis, any of those, because you just it just gets better and better and better and better.
They keep evolving.
Yeah. That's why the NFL is the way it is. If they played the way they played 25 years ago, guys would be dying out there.
Right.
Because the athleticism, they'd be knocking people's heads off. You cannot. NFL had to change because the athletes were getting so much bigger, stronger, and faster.
Well, look at Marciano. I still got a poster of Rocky Marciano in my basement. Unbelievable fighter in his day, right? You know how big he was? Tiny.
5'8".
165, 75 pounds probably. He'd be a welterweight. That's why I can't even consider him in the heavyweight division. Give me a break. In his era, was he big enough to be a heavyweight? Sure. Imagine him versus one of the Klitschko's. Put him in there with a guy at 6'7", 290 pounds of ripped muscle that knows
He might not make it out of there. He'd get killed.
He's not going to get through the first round,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
And he was undefeated in his era. So that's why you just got to, you look at ear. You got to look at ears. What did that guy do versus equal competition when he was on the planet?
And that's the only way you can judge it or base it.
Correct.
You can't do this generationally.
There's guys that have set standards that are copied, but to say there'll be better basketball players than Michael Jordan, well, of course there's going to be. I mean, give me a break. There's arguments now about like LeBron and this. I don't buy that because I'm a Jordan era guy. But you know what I'm saying? There'll eventually be a guy that far surpasses him.
Yeah.
Because everything keeps just evolving better and better.
Gotcha.
I mean, you look at what, even like you look at the track times. Me and Henry watch these track times, and they keep coming down and down. Every year, you got to be faster and faster and faster. Well, I mean, Henry's got 2 different track spikes. That's track spikes. The latest ones he's wearing, they got a carbon plate in them. Carbon plate in a track spike. They weigh 4.2 ounces, Bubba. Are you kidding me?
It's like running barefoot.
Yeah, when I was a kid, the shoes you wore looked like church shoes. They weigh like 4 pounds a piece. Now we're wearing track spikes that have carbon in them, and they weigh 4 ounces. Come on.
Yeah, things are evolving.
Right. So then you can't compare his times versus a guy with 20-pound shoes running on a cinder track.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha. Well, talking about these old fighters and stuff, that just got me thinking. We love to see these relics from the past come back. So I wanted to throw you a curveball and just, man, have you seen that Madonna is on tour? Madonna from what, 80s? I don't know. Do you know how old Madonna is?
Bubba, how would have I seen that?
Come on, this is why I'm bringing it up. I wanted to have a few laughs. We said, okay, Tyson's going to be 60. This is the same era. How
61.
old? Madonna's 65 this year.
Is she
65,
really?
and she's out there on tour
For what?
dancing and gyrating. She is 65 years old, and it's disgusting. And so I watched a few clips. She's got one of her stage boys like drag. She's sitting on a chair, and the guy's dragging her, and she falls off the chair, and it's just like, oh my god, she's old. She's like a grandma, and she's out here dressing and dancing and trying to do this stuff like she's 20, and it's awkward, man. But she was like
I did not
the sex
know that.
symbol. I'm sure you didn't, but I'm telling you.
I didn't like her when she was 25 and singing.
Well, neither did I. All I remember was the cone top thing from when I was a kid, and I always thought that was weird. But all right, so the last thing I'm going to tell you about Madonna that we'll laugh at, it's actually kind of sad, was so on this tour, which I hear she doesn't sell out, which you shouldn't. If you're 65 and you're trying to be a sex symbol, you go to a concert, you pay for a seat, but if the row in front of you standing, you can't see. So everyone, you pay for the seat and then we stand. We are stupid people, I swear. Someone's not standing. And there's a clip out there that was making the rounds, and she scolded this person until she realized the person's in a wheelchair.
Oh, man.
Madonna, it's time to go home. It's time to go home.
There again, what'd you do with all the money?
Why do you have the need to do this? And you know what her response was? I don't even think she said, I'm sorry. She goes, oops, politically incorrect. No, that's not a politically incorrect. You overstepped the lines.
Right.
That politically incorrect. That doesn't even apply. But yeah, I knew you'd get a kick out of that. My goodness. 65 and trying to be a sex symbol was kind of weird. Something else I wanted to mention was, you know how when you listen to podcasts, I don't know if Apple Podcasts is this way, but sometimes it will recommend things in your feed and start playing them based on what you're already listening to. So that's not how it happened for me. I don't know why I said that, but that is how it works. I was searching for podcasts around Christmas time because I like to hear kind of Christmas themed things and stuff. And I found this one guy who him and his buddies got together, and they would just review Christmas movies. And you could just tell they probably sound like they're in their early 20s, having a blast. You know, some of them hated Christmas Vacation, and it was just
come on.
I know, and it was just great banter back and forth. And somehow, gosh, I think it did pop up in my feed. This podcast, Out of the Church Attic, popped up. And it was because I had liked that other podcast, which was called Feasts of Film, and it was the same guy, except now it's like 3 years later, and he's doing this podcast with this pastor out of their church's attic, and it's just like what we're doing here,
Really?
Except it's all based around things that affect the church.
Nice.
In Appalachia. So they're in North Carolina, and they just kind of follow, they just say it's a whole other culture. So first few, they're only in 2 seasons right now, and they're talking about culture in Appalachia and why they have a Baptist church every 10 foot. And and then they talk about all the different denominations. And then they just episode by episode, they talk about different things that affect positively and negatively the churches in Appalachia. And It's been the coolest thing. So I emailed this guy. I sent him this email, and I was like, I tell him my story, what we're doing. I was like, I think we got this. I think we're on the same team, trying to do the same thing, get people talking about cultural things, except they don't get into culture too much. They just stay more biblically based and what Christians are doing when they get it wrong and what they do, how to do it right and just different things. And so I sent him this email, and I tell him about how we all got this started, and then I just go into my personal history so they don't think I'm some weirdo or something. And I'm just like, yeah, no, this is me, and this is how I found you because I listened to this other podcast you did a few years ago. And the dude emails me back, and he's like, yeah, when the time's right, I'd love to have you on, and we'll do a Zoom thing. And you can be on mine. And I'm just like, I think I'm going to propose this. Like that's our sister podcast, man. It really is. Yeah. And I don't quite think theirs is very well done, well done, but you can tell it's because of their effort. I don't think this is a massive congregation based on their like followers and stuff. Right. They don't even compare to us yet.
Right.
But stuff they're talking about is truth, and it's really good. So if anybody out there is listening, I'm claiming it right now. They're our sister podcast. That's not, they haven't approved that yet, but they are. Go check it out. Out of the Church Attic is really good, and I think the kid's name is Colton Burse, and the pastor's name is Randy Ramsey. So if you find them,
nice.
I think they're on social media and stuff. Go check them out. It'll be good and encouraging for you. So, man, I'm checking the list here. I think we covered everything I wanted to in this special episode, except for the last thing. Here it is. I know I had it in here. Ever since you started, you built this cabin up in, I don't even know where you call it, Northeast Iowa.
Northeast Iowa. Well, it's really
we're just going to leave it there.
Yep.
Okay. So you're kind of getting up into the hilly part, like if you're heading towards Wisconsin. I wouldn't say it's homesteading. I joke and I say it's homesteading, but man, you got some hunting ground, and you got now you got the cabin up there for quite a few years now. And now you're doing other things, putting the pond in. We talked about that.
Huge deal. Yep.
And you said, I want to talk about how since I've been up there and being in nature, I've seen a lot more of God in the outdoors. So why don't you give me a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, so it kind of starts with, I'm getting towards the end of my work career, hopefully, God willing, and so I spend a lot of time up there. And when you get away from half my property, you can't get cell service, none of this nonsense, you know what I mean? So I get away from all my technology.
Okay.
I check out of the world. So that's the first thing it does. And like we discussed, as good as technology is, it's just as bad. Mm-hmm. If you think you constantly need to be checking, I just did it right there. I had a message, so I'm looking at my phone. It was nothing important, but I check it because so you're hardwired to be attached to these stupid devices and this stupid stuff. Yeah. I get up there, I get unplugged from it. I crawl in a tree stand, crawl in a ground blind, and it just hit me while I was deer hunting last year. I mean, it's not that just hit me, but it hit me really hard again. You get these. I'm getting older, I'm starting to reflect back on life, you know what I mean? And you start looking at all the things you've done and this and that. And I sit up in this tree, and the views from my property are, in my opinion, the best in the world. It's just beautiful up there, right? Since my first time in Northeast Iowa, I always wanted to have a place up there, and I finally got one, and I'm super happy with it. So I'm sitting in a tree stand, and I'm seeing the beautiful rolling hills and all these vastly different trees. I'm a tree nut. I could talk for hours on trees. I've grown trees from seed. I got a million different types of trees growing. I trim them. I treat them like they're my kids. I love my trees. I've done so much work to this property to make it exactly what I've always dreamed in my head I wanted, you know what I mean? And I sit in my tree stand, I watch deer come out, and I see a pheasant and a turkey, and I see squirrels and all these animals and 20 different types of trees and the grasses, and I can look, and I can see for miles from my tree stand, literally miles I can see, you know what I mean?
Nice.
And you look at this view, and it just kind of strikes me, I sit there, and it looks better than any painting you could ever see, okay? And so it's kind of like other people have said it different ways, but if I brought in here the most beautiful painting you'd ever seen and hung it on your wall and told you that paint splattered off the ceiling and made this painting, you'd call me what would you say to me, Bubba?
No chance. Not possible.
0 chances, correct? I mean, let's be reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
What were the chances of this beautiful painting? That's a painting.
Right.
Okay, a painting. Very simplistic. But I want a beautiful view of what I'm seeing painted. Okay? So then if that's, what would you say the percentage of that? 0.0000000?
I don't know. You add in millions of years, maybe.
You keep dropping the paint, but it's never going to happen.
No.
That's the reality. You got to still give it a percentage point of this could happen, right?
Yeah.
I look at that view, I go, how could people believe there's not a creator of this universe? I've struggled with stuff. I've struggled with stuff in the Bible. I've never struggled with the fact that there's a God. I've struggled with stuff and predestination. There's all kinds of things that I could talk. I've struggled my whole life. Mm-hmm. It's made me really question my faith and this and that. But then when I get somewhere like that, and I sit there and I go, you've got to be, those are my refreshers in life.
Yeah.
I look around that, I go, you got to be kidding me. Anybody that's going to tell me that this is happenstance, this just came out of nothing, just one of the trees, a seed comes from out of that tree and grows into a 150-foot tall tree 100 years later. Give me a break.
Yeah. That's
you see
impressive.
the vastness just in our wildlife up there.
Yeah.
That came from a couple of different organisms in water. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You've got to be somewhat reasonable. At some point in time, you got to say, okay.
Maybe there's something else.
So here's how I'll wrap that up. So here's what I think. If you really want my nuts and bolts of how religion works, okay, this is what I believe. And that's probably not true for everybody. But, by the way, crowd, I went through this whole podcast without saying mind's eye. So I just wanted to say it one time because I got made fun of relentlessly over saying that. So I'm sure there's a catchphrase in this one that I'll get made fun of too, but we'll see what it is. Here's the deal. People that say they don't believe in God, I think they fall in a couple of different camps, but I think a big camp that they fall into is this, Bubba. They don't want to believe in God because they want to live life the way they want to live it.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's a big
They
one.
know deep down there's a God, but they don't want to admit it because then they can't do the things that say, whatever their sin is, okay?
Yeah.
Whether it's gluttony, greed, sexual immorality, drunkenness, you name it. I don't care what the sin is. There's a lot of sins. I struggle with sins. You struggle with sins.
Yep.
But there's a difference between, like I've been explaining to my kids and me and married days, there's a difference between living in sin and sinning.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you live in sin, you made the conscious decision, this is how I'm going to live my life. I don't care what God thinks.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I think a large portion of these people that say they don't believe in God, even if you could say 100% I can show you there's a God, 100% certainly there's, they still wouldn't
Don't
believe
want it.
because they'd have to change their behaviors.
Right.
I am not a great example. I never tried to be. I've had a temper my whole life. I do a lot of things I
Yeah.
wish I didn't do. Every day I try to be slightly better. Some days I'm better. Some days I fail miserably. But I know there's a God up there, and I try my darndest to behave in a manner that's appropriate, which I fail more than I succeed at. But I can't sit in a tree stand and look at this unbelievable planet. And this is just my little small 48
Yeah.
section in Iowa.
Yeah.
I can't look at that and tell you that wasn't created by something.
Yeah.
You've got to be kidding me. Show me how that happened.
Yeah.
Please show me how. It's just the birds. I see 30 birds a night with a million different colors. You're saying that just happened.
Yeah.
Those trees, my hills, like I said, everything.
The way the whole ecosystem works together.
Everything it jives together.
Yeah.
I mean, you just take a drop of blood, and look at it in a microscope and tell me that just happened. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You gotta be. And then you look at our conscience from that. Give me a break, Bubba. It didn't happen. You know what I mean? So that is how so anytime that I am feeling low in my faith, the best thing for me to do is go in the outdoors, Bubba. I think some of my closest times to God are when I'm sitting out in the outdoors.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
You know what I mean? That right me is, that's my deal. That's my, and some people will call it like, what do they call it? Oh, the God of the gaps, or there's all these excuses, you stick that word God in where you can't explain it. That's what the people say.
Yeah.
I read about, I've watched the interviews on the internet with the God of the gaps, or it's the God of this, or anytime you can't explain something, it's God. I said, well, you're valid to a point, but give me a better answer.
Yeah. You got a better story?
No.
Aside from just adding billions of years for the things you can't explain.
I mean, you give me billions of years, have a particle turn into one bird, any bird, let alone the thousands of organisms and species and stuff we have on this planet, and how it all works together and how everything comes together. I mean, because you or I can't even wrap our brain around what scientists can wrap their brain around with our ecosystem and society in the world and how it all comes together. I'm just saying, break down my 40 acres of woods and show me how that come together without a creator.
Yeah.
So my bottom line is that did not happen.
Didn't happen by chance.
And if someone wants to call me and tell me how it did, I'd love to, but you got to be realistic with me.
Right.
Start with my painting. Please get all your colors together, and I don't care how many times you got to throw them at that thing. Bring me a painting of my cabin. Just bring me a painting of my cabin without drawing it. Yeah. And then go back into how this all got here without a creator.
In perfect order. Yeah. I'm with you.
No way.
I'm with you. I got you a quote from Charles Darwin right here. I saved this on my phone.
Okay.
I'll probably throw this up on the YouTube video. I don't know if you've seen this, but Darwin, famous evolutionist.
Yes.
Dawkins, famous atheist scientist of our time. You see what's happening with him? He's his right-hand man this year and one of his closest colleagues last year have both left atheism for Christianity. And these are close atheists to Dawkins. Dawkins puts out a Twitter post, and it says, "It appears there might be a little more I have to learn about Christianity." Nice. The door's opening. You see longtime liberal atheists like Joe Rogan.
I see that.
That door's swinging open big time. And it's probably for no reason other than all the political crap that's happened over the last few years. But now he's opening up a little bit. When he used to say the Bible's effing nonsense, he's screaming for truth now. So watch what happens with those guys. Anyway, Darwin. Darwin says, I remember well the time when the thought of the human eye, made me cold all over. But I have gotten over this stage of the complaint, and now small, trifling particulars of structure often make me very uncomfortable. The sight of a feather in a peacock's tail whenever I gaze at it makes me sick. Darwin knows.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just exactly what you were saying. They know that they cannot explain the complexity. You can go all the way back to the Big Bang. When a random explosion has ever created any kind of order, much less what you're saying, the amazing, intense, intricate design that we're on a planet rotating in a circle every 24 hours. We're spinning around the sun 365 days in a year. If we're any inches closer to the sun, we burn up. If we're any farther away, we freeze to death. And everything is working just perfectly. How did that happen after a random explosion? And then you still got to say how, because all the scientists admit there was no spontaneous or we have not always been here from the beginning. There was nothing, and then there was something. Right. And all scientists agree with that. Okay? When have you, to basically be an atheist, and I'm not, if that's what you believe, me and Ryan would love to talk with you. Explain it to us. Because to us, you might laugh at us for having faith in God. We would say it takes more faith for you to believe that nothing created everything you see. Do you see the jump? That faith is believing in something you can't see. It takes more faith to believe that absolutely nothing created everything. Okay? It sounds pretty ludicrous, right?
We've created a society, Bubba, where people want desperately to be their own God.
Their own God, yeah.
They don't want to admit that they are, what's the word? Responsible. They have to, I'm a brain freeze right now. They're ultimately responsible for their actions. There's going to be consequences. There's consequences for actions. Yeah. We've created generations now where they think there's no consequences for actions. Yeah. And the further we get away from real truths,
the worse it gets.
It's getting worse and worse every day. Yeah. The more travel ball we do on Sundays, and we're not in church. I'm just my reality.
The generations slip farther and farther down that slope. I got you.
Yeah. Like I said, you cannot. You'll never be able to convince me that. Like I said, I still have so many questions about the Bible and certain things that I think they're unfair and this and that. But like I said, about 5 years ago, I finally stopped. I said, you know what, Ryan? If God wanted you to know, He'd explain it to you. You don't have to agree with everything. Just like me and you don't agree with everything. Yeah. I don't agree with a lot of things I've read in the Bible, but I know facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know God created this and Jesus came and died for me. Those things are facts.
That's a good place to start right there. Right. Very good place to start.
That's why I read the Gospels, 10 times in the last 3 years, because I wanted to get a grasp on those.
Yeah, yeah.
And when so when he talks about you have to have the childlike beliefs, that's why people that are super intelligent have a harder time believing. So as I got older, the smarter I thought I got, the less I started questioning my beliefs. You know what I mean? The more I started, well, why is that? That wasn't fair. What this happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then as soon as I took it back to, okay, Ryan, then what do you think? What do you, I really broke it down in my own head and really studied and really thought about it. I said, boy, I was really worrying about a bunch of stuff that really doesn't matter.
Yeah, secondary issues.
Here's the facts. This didn't happen this just didn't, poof.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, Not sorry. Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
No way.
That's right.
You can't poof me any animal, let alone the world we live in.
No. Sure can't. Sure can't.
So that's how, and that is probably a big portion, a big reason I absolutely love being in the outdoors at my cabin. I just feel connected.
Nice.
I feel zoned in on what is important and not my stupid phone and all this other nonsense that's going on in the world.
I like it. Man. Okay. That's a great sermon right there. I'm going to end with this. I want you to tell me, we joked about this offline or whatever we want to call it. You've been a big supporter of the podcast from day one. You contributed financially. You've contributed by promoting. You've been a supporter of my preaching because I've been filling in a lot more lately. Something has changed, and it seems like I struggle to get through a sermon without tearing up. I need you to tell me why that is. Your opinion. Just age?
It's reflection. Now, you've always, remember, Bubba, go back to the first one. I said, you were the first male that I've ever met who I thought was tough. I still think you're a tough kid, but you're emotional. You're emotional. And remember, it used to bug me. It used to bother me when you would get emotional.
I don't have thick skin.
You don't.
And that's why I can't be a pastor. I can't handle stuff like that.
See, that's where I disagree, Bubba. When I hate to blow you up because, I just don't like to do it. You are one of the best preachers I have ever heard preach. Now, I understand we're friends. We've been longtime friends. So we have that connection.
Yeah.
Period. You have a gift that's God-given gift for preaching, and I wish you were a preacher. I would be there every Sunday for preaching. I think you're fantastic. You do an absolutely, the way that you bring things back relevantly. You don't preach too long. Top 3 I've ever heard. Top 3 for me. That's not me blowing smoke. That's dead truth. Me to you. You're top 3. Excellent. There, when you quit working, and I understand you're raising a family, you got a lot of commitments right now, so I'm not trying to put something on you that you don't need there. You're pulled in 87 ways. When you preach, I get something out of it every single time.
Nice.
Excellent preacher.
That's the goal.
You are an excellent preacher, Bubba. So,
and that's where I make the distinction. Preaching is something I can fill in and do to help.
Correct.
Especially if I'm starting to realize, God gave me a gift. But being a pastor, shepherding a flock is kind of what you're getting at. Then I have to worry about
different game. Correct.
And it's just been bothering me. My goodness, I can't hardly get through a sermon without tearing up or getting choked up. I think I'm gonna go with that answer because it is. You start reflecting. I mean, you can see if you guys go back and watch any of my previous sermons. Yeah, when I start talking about things that I'm serious about, when we say we think generations are sliding down a hill, that we want families back in churches and men leading their families the right way, not some iron fist, my way or the highway thing, like serving your wife, sacrificing for your family, that kind of stuff. When I don't see that happening, I guess I just can't hold it in. If you want to see a grown man cry, I guess you can go back and watch some of these sermons. But
all men get more emotional as they
get older. Okay.
My father, who was emotionless growing up, he was a stone cold killer. He was.
He's a softie now.
He is a softie now.
Yeah,
he is. It took him 80 years. But he's emotional now, you know what I mean? And I even see myself starting to get emotional. Yeah, I'm waiting for that first tear to shed.
Oh, I can't wait. I hope I'm there.
In the next 10 years, I think I'm going to shed my first tear. I've shed one tear in front of Mary in our 28 years, and that was, I wiped it away. When George was born, my first child was born.
Okay.
I shed one tear, and I wiped it away. She goes, that was a tear, wasn't it? I go, I don't know. Something felt funny on my face.
She said that from the bed? She just gave birth to a kid?
She literally did.
My gosh.
So that's the one tear she's seen me shed. So I might shed one here again soon. I am getting more. So I think it's just part of aging.
Okay, I'm going to go with that.
You start reflecting more. You start seeing things. You see so much more clearly the older you get.
You do.
It's.
But you gotta care too. If you were solely wrapped up in just spending time up in your cabin and hunt,
right.
If you don't care, you don't care. You're not going to show emotion about anything.
Right. I get you.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, dude, man, thanks for coming on we marked this kind of 15 episode point right here. I mean, the thing is only growing from here.
Right on.
Slowly but surely. We had a college kid on. We hit a new demographic. And the next guest, will be a female, and she's halfway of a big deal. I mean, I don't get too excited about anybody, but I know she's got a big following. So we're going to be dropping some pictures, and we might do a giveaway. I think Petersons are out because you did guess it. Right? You and me were texting, yeah. So you're out.
Whoa.
Sarah,
whoa.
I can't let you win the contest. I don't know.
You've
You've got all the merch we got. You bought a hat. You got a shirt. I think Mom sent me some stainless coffee mugs, stainless and white, so we might start selling those. But so yeah, be on the lookout for those pictures of our first female guest. And that'll be coming up after this. But I want to do something special, do something different for this kind of, I don't know what they call it, a tent pole point in our history here. So to the audience, man, I want to thank you guys for all the support. Please help continue to help us to grow. You have to make sure and do a few things. You have to follow or subscribe if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or YouTube. You have to do that. And if you're like Ryan, let me offer a suggestion. If you don't know when I'm going to drop an episode, click the little bell. If you click the little bell wherever you're listening, it will send like a notification to your phone, like a little text message saying, hey, there's a new episode. And then you know. If you've noticed, I've tried to drop them Friday mornings. It doesn't always work, but most of the time I can get it done. So do that. Follow, subscribe, and click that little bell. And then you got to go to our social media. That helps too, Facebook and Instagram. Comment. If you guys leave a comment there, that helps as well. You can always send me an email. If there's one thing I can ask, send me some feedback. Send me future guests. Send me future topics that you want me to cover. I get feedback all the time saying, my goodness, you talked about this, and this on your solo episode. I didn't know any of that was going on. And there go the dogs, right on cue. We could not get through a day. I knew, or an episode. We almost did. But if you listen to the last intro Rad did, it was great. He did a little shotgun noise like, I can take care of them dogs. But anyway, send me an email. Tell me what you think of Sarah's dogs. Give me some future guests, future topics, and man, I will get on that stuff. Let's see. Share with everybody you know. Share on your social media. Tag us in the post. Like I said, maybe buy a shirt, a hat, or a mug. Our goal is simple here. It hasn't changed. I'm trying to encourage people. We entertain you at the same time, but we're going to speak truth and challenge everyone who listens. This brings about growth. It's good stuff. So if you want more of that, or if you need hope, or you need change in your life, there is one place you can go. And me and Ryan have kind of really been driving that home here towards the end, and that's Jesus. That's God's Word. Looking around today, it has a lot of us asking, what is up? And we need truth in our lives today like never before. So my question is, where are you getting it? Are you just making it up as you go? That's not going to get you very far. Hopefully it's not just the news media or the internet. God's Word is truth. Even if we don't believe it or we have doubts, it's still truth. When we get to the end of ourselves, then we can get to the beginning of God. Man, that sounded good, but that wasn't me. That was Phil Robertson.
That was good.
That was good. The basics are here. Like Ryan said, start in the New Testament. If you don't want to dig into all that old stuff, start in the New Testament. Get to know Jesus, and you'll quickly see how the New Testament will point back to all that stuff in the Old Testament, okay? Get to know Jesus. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You'll find out we all have a sin problem, and Jesus paid that penalty for all of us. Okay? Do you want that gift? Do you want to accept that gift of forgiveness? It's yours for the taking. It's right there. And you can't get it any other way. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. I promise you, He will change your life wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. If you sincerely come and repent, He will change your life. Whatever you're going through, He'll meet you right there. Or maybe things are going just fine. Maybe you can't relate to anything me and Ryan have been saying, and things are just good. Your bank account's good, your 401k is good, your health is good, your kids are good.
Give me a call.
Yeah, we want to know what you're doing and how do we do it. And you're perfectly happy being your own God. That's kind of what Ryan was getting at too. Jesus said there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who need no repentance. Okay? Don't kid yourself. We all need that saving relationship with Jesus. None of us are good enough on our own. Myself and Ryan especially. If you want to know more, just get a hold of me. Get a hold of me any way you can. Reach out to Ryan. Other people have given their phone numbers on this podcast. Ryan Nesbitt said you can call him anytime. He will help you. He will share the gospel with you. if that's what you really want, reach out to us. Okay, you can call me, text me, email me, whatever. I'd actually love to hear from you. That's kind of what I live for. When people reach out to me and they want to know more, or somebody from work comes up to me and says something, it kind of makes me feel good. It gives me hope for the future that people are listening, people are searching for truth, and I'd love to see Dawkins and Joe Rogan come to faith in Jesus in front of the whole world to see, and it can happen. Okay. But you got to think about where you're at. And I don't want you to wait too long, though, because the Bible says we aren't promised tomorrow. If you're not on the right side of things now, if you haven't put your faith in Jesus and something happens tonight, where are you going? You got to think about that. All right? And that's why I always sign off the same way every single episode. Lord willing, I'll see you on the next one.